So now in this piping practice lesson, we are going to see how to make plain shells. So obviously here you can see the angle of holding is 45 degrees. So I have the piping bag fitted with the same nozzle that I had used for the flat stars. Now for the flat stars, you've been holding like this, which means it is at 90 degrees. Now 45 will be at an angle like that. So we're just going to start squeezing, holding the hand at an angle. Okay. So let me just start with squeezing to have a broader head. Stop squeezing and move your hand to the right. So the tail will taper by itself. Okay. So I'm just going to squeeze, get the head broad, stop squeezing and then move to the right. So have a gap, a bit of gap between one end, the end of whatever you've piped. So as you're squeezing, the buttercream will just spread and have a broad head, and once it just goes and touches the tail of the previous shell that you've piped, and then you're going to move your hand swiftly to the right, and that is when you will have the tail tapering on the right side. So with a bit of gap, squeeze, wait for the head to broaden up, touch the tail, and once it touches, move your hand to the right swiftly, which is like quite fast. Now depending on where you want to use the other hand to support the dominant hand, the hand that is piping. So either you could be holding it here, or sometimes you want to rest your hand on the table that you're working, or if you are going to pipe. So when you're going to do that, on the sides of the cake obviously there's a turntable, and then you could just use your elbow resting and then you could pipe. So your hand can't be all the time in the air without any support, and then you won't have enough control as you're going to pipe. Now if it is hanging on the air, then obviously you need the other hand to go hold that for support. So it is broader head and stop piping and move to the right. So that's just a burst of air bubble. So just make sure all of them are the same size of the shell. Let me do one more row. Squeeze, broader head, stop, move to the right. Squeeze, move to the right. It's just pretty simple and straightforward. What you exactly need to have is this one, where you have head that is quite broad, and then you have a tapered tail on one end. So I'm going to squish, have the head broad and swiftly move to the right. So how much time I'm allowing for squeezing for the broad head, and that needs to be uniform if I want a uniform size for each of the shell. And having the tail pointy is important. So the next head is going to be broad and you want one side of it tapered. Okay, let me just do another row. So this is of a different size and this is of a different size. Let me just understand the kind of pressure that I need to give so I can have all the shells the uniform size. Now as you're doing your piping practice, if the ridges are not smooth, as you can see in this, it's just a bit rugged, which means the buttercream should be softened up. Now without the support of this hand, I'm just able to pipe them all, obviously because I am having the support here. Now in case it's just on the top, then I need to support. So I've just done one row here. Let me try and do one more as well. Start from the left, squeeze, broader head, as the head touches the tail of the previous shell, move your hand swiftly to the right, which is like drag it to the right as fast as possible, so you have the tail pointy. So that will be simple plain shells. Now, because I'm calling this simple plain shells, I'm not going to do any extra movement or any other variation. So just in case if you have been piping the shells a bit differently, say for example, you've just done it in a way where you're going to do this movement, the wave, taking the nozzle a bit up and then coming down. That is not wrong, that is also a way of doing the shells. But to understand the kind of shells that we are going to do now, what you want to have should be there in the sheet. So we are going to do plain shells and we are not going to do one with a movement. I do not recommend beginners to do one with movement because it is not going to be uniform as you are practicing. So what I'm talking about is a shell like this, the one that goes up and then comes down. So if you've already used to doing this, for this plain shells, you could just see the difference how it looks. The broader head comes from lifting the nozzle up and then bringing it down. So it just goes all the way up and down, up and down. So we are not going to do that. I've just shown, if you already been doing that, you skip this idea and what you will do is the plain shells. Now in the lesson, what you will do is to make one row with all the shells same size and shape, and once that is being approved, and then you will make 3 rows of all the shells of the same size and then send the picture of that for approval. And once that is done, we've come to the end of the second piping practice, which is the plain shell, and I'll meet you in the next piping practice lesson.